All right, we'll go back and call to order the August 14th, 2019 meeting of the Ascension Parish Zoning Commission. The record reflect that all members, with the exception of Mr. Dumas, Bishop, and Christie, thank you, I had a mind blank there, are present. Can we get staff introduction once more, please?
Jamaica Banker, Zoning Secretary.
Cody Morton, attorney for the Zoning Commission.
Lance Brock, zoning official.
Eric Poche, parish planner.
Jerome Fournier, Director of Planning and Development.
Item number 3 is minutes, and we need a motion to approve or deny, or not.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Can I get the statement out first? Acceptance of the minutes of the February 13th, 2019 meeting. Motion by Mr. Schexnayder, second by Mr. Furman. Sorry, it's already been
That's
beat.
fine.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Item number 4 is the chairman's comments. Chair has no comments, so we can get right to the fun stuff. Item number 5, public hearing to amend the Ascension Parish Development Code for recommendation for the approval or denial to the Ascension Parish Council of 5A zoning review ID PZ 2037.19, lots 10A 1 of Lot 9C, the Stephen M. Ryan property, and Lot 10A of the Kim Garrich property into 9CA and Lot 10A1 for Richard Deschatel. This is located on the east side of Louisiana Highway 431, approximately 1,500 feet north of Black Bayou Road, Louisiana Highway 934, to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from rural to mixed use 2. Is anybody here to speak on this issue? Going once. If the applicant is not here, he's here? He's not here. Oh. Okay, you want to be heard on this, sir, before we come up to the podium, please?
Nothing other than the fact that we are looking for M2, the opportunity to do business in that area, and we'd appreciate your consideration.
Staff?
Staff recommends to deny the MU.
And what's the reason for denying?
Spot zoning.
All right, we'll go ahead and open a public hearing on this. Is anyone signed to speak on this, Mr.
I
Maker?
have 2 people, Ashley and Terrence Barnes. They're not in support and they don't want to speak.
Okay,
And then I have Janet Singletary. They're not in support and she does not wish to speak.
all right. So we have 3 people present, as I counted, who are not in support. All right, any questions or comments of the commission, or, yes, Mr. Mr. Furman, you first.
Yeah, I agree. This is spot zoning, and I think it's in violation of our code, and I don't think it should be approved.
I just want to ask the applicant, it's currently residential. What are your intentions? Why are you requesting this? Can you give us more information?
We are real estate investors, and it was a home office, and we have grown. Still new business, but we have grown, and of course, it's a prime location for business. Everyone is familiar with the area, and in addition to increasing the property value, we'd like to continue to do business right there instead of moving someplace else.
You do realize that we are not allowed to consider any type of increase or decrease of property value for our consideration, correct?
Oh, that's one.
Okay. Okay.
Aaron, you have anything?
So basically, what you would be trying to do is just expand your business, your real estate business. It's basically an office. You're trying to run an office out of the, I guess, what looks like a house, but it's not a home office, right? Am I?
It was a home office, and you're exactly right. We're looking to expand the business, and obviously there are commercial areas across the street. Everything's commercial practically all around us, and it's a high-traffic area. That's a great location for what we do. The majority of our properties and business is in Ascension Parish, mostly in Santamar and Prairieville. I'm sure we can lease or purchase any place anywhere in Ascension Parish to run the office. But again, people know us. We've created a name in this area, and we'd like to stay right there.
Yeah, I agree. It's spot zoning. My problem is this is a hole in the zoning ordinance that that Lance is tired of hearing about. But I think there needs to be a classification which allows for, I've talked about, it's not exactly a home business, but a business that looks like a home, essentially. And either way to do that with a new zoning classification or overlay district or overlay zone. And we've run into this issue on Highway 73 multiple times, but as it stands now, it would be considered spot zoning, and it doesn't fall within any good classification where we could do that.
This is Highway 431, not 73.
Yeah, no, I
Okay.
know.
No,
but at
he
the
was just
same
using
time,
that
it's-
as- it's
as
the
an
same-
example. I
Sure,
mean,
sure.
the problem is you have property that, as personally, my opinion is, if you can have an office-type building that looks like a house, and all the parking is in the rear, and the signage is minimal, and essentially it looks like a home, and it fits in with the houses around it, but it's in an area where there might be some commercial, I think there's a way in the zoning, to do zoning to make that work, because you don't have the substantial traffic increases and all the things that would come with going with an MU2 zone reclassification. The problem is, if we reclassify an MU2, then that means basically anything in that classification could now go there, and whether it's in compliance with the characteristics of what's around it or not. And this, it is a spot zone, and I wish there were a classification in our zoning ordinance that would allow us to do what you want to do without having to rezone the entire property MU2.
Can I ask, when you say spot zoning, and, I'm not exactly sure what all that entails and means, but
So when you look at this map, see how this is all red? You would be a
Yellow.
spot of yellow right in the middle of all the red. That's the easiest way to identify it. You're essentially a spot in the middle of zone,
Residential.
everything around it that's not zoned the same way. If it were adjacent to a piece of property that was already zoned MU2, and you're not jumping like a major highway or something, then you could justify it because it's adjacent. But when it's not, like this is, you wind up with essentially a spot of yellow in the middle of the red. And
So everything across the street is clearly commercial. The venue,
And it's all zoned that way.
the venue, the Church of Santa Ma, everything along that, and then 2 or 3 doors down from us, I know you've got a karate school or center, you've got a crematory, you've got, in the other side, you've got, so yes, I understand, and these are spots, but I guess I'm unclear on what would prevent us, what's different in this, because most businesses that start up are older house. My accountant, he's in an old house, a brick 70s style brick home.
It also gets into the appeal of, let's say this becomes to the zoning recommendation that you were requesting. Then there also becomes an infrastructure issue. You could potentially have more of an impact on the existing infrastructure. You could potentially have upwards of 50 cars a day traveling to and from your business. That is not designed right here. You don't have that accounted for. You would then need to mitigate that in some form of fashion. You might have to have a turn lane. You might have to have a deceleration or an acceleration lane going on to 431. All of those things you would be required to.
I don't
You would-
see that, I guess, I'm sorry.
But what I'm saying is that potentially you could have that type of impact. You could potentially also have to improve if you bring it as commercial, then you would have to bring it up to commercialized standards. The business, the structure could potentially have to have improvements as a commercial operation. You could have to have a parking lot with handicap parking and such, and so on and so forth. I'm just saying that you almost want to say, be careful what you're asking for, but you could potentially be subject to those type of things.
And
Lance,
the other issue is, you may be wanting to expand on the house that's there, which would be fine, but if you sell this property, once it's changed, then anything that could be mixed use can come in there. And so the whole characteristic of that area could change on that side of the road, and that's what we have to be watchful for. That's why spot zoning is not a favored thing.
And last but not least, this is just not contiguous with our master plan that we just passed. This doesn't fall in line with it. So that all being said, I'm going to make a motion to recommend denial to the council of the zoning request.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Schexnayder, second by Mr. Furman. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none. Now, we're not the final body on this. It's still, whether, we could have approved it tonight, the council still has the final word. All we're doing is making a recommendation, so it still can go to the parish council.
Sure, sure.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to item number 5B, which apparently most people are here for tonight, is zoning review ID PZ 2064.19, Lot 32 of Perkins Oaks subdivision for Zachary Whittington, located on the north side of Perkins Road, approximately 100 feet east of Perkins Oak Road, to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from medium-intensity residential to mixed-use corridor. Mr. Whittington, are you here tonight, sir?
How you doing, Councilman? I'm sure everybody's wondering why I want to rezone to mixed use. It will still be used as a house. I'm still gonna be living there. I have kids. School zone's great. Just got into Bullion Primary School Zone. We're not going anywhere. I'm rezoning to perform advertising on my fence on the side of 427 Perkins Road, right there. High traffic area, Walmart's across the street, half shells in my backyard. That's all I'm doing. I just want to run an advertising ad company on my fence. I already have companies lined up. It's previously been done. I bought the house from my mother about 2 years ago. She was running an advertising company, and someone tried to post on the fence without paying her, and she took the ad down, and they called the parish. Parish told her that she couldn't advertise on the fence unless it was rezoned to mixed use. So that's what I'm doing, and I'd like approval to do it.
Staff?
Staff recommends deny the MU as requested.
Reason being?
It's in a subdivision, it's part of a subdivision, and I don't think that it's conducive or to that, and especially once it gets rezoned on that property, there's many uses that could go there, that could be in that subdivision, I guess you could say.
We'll go ahead and open a public hearing on this, sir. Mr. Maker, how many people have signed up to speak on this?
Quite a few. All right, I have Amy Savoy. She's not in support and she does not wish to speak.
Let me ask you before you go down, is there any in support?
No.
Okay.
I have Stephen Clegg. He's not in support. He does not wish to speak. I have Catherine Gobert, and she would like to speak. She's not in support.
Ms. Coppell?
Good evening again, Commissioners. Citizens understand that every property owner may make application to change the zoning of their property. It is your responsibility to determine whether the requested change is appropriate. This request is not consistent with current zoning. Let's look at the facts. The lot being considered is residential with a home and part of Perkins Oak subdivision. This lot just happens to be located adjacent to Perkins Road, across from the Prairieville Walmart, and is the first lot on the east side of the street as you enter the subdivision. Mr. Whittington wants to rezone this lot from medium residential to mixed use. Why? The applicant wants to establish an advertising company in order to post signs either 10 feet by 4 feet or 8 feet by 4 feet on the fence on the south side of his property facing Perkins Road. How would you like signs 10 feet high at the entrance of your subdivision? What an eyesore. If changed, any use allowed in mixed use would then be allowed. Let's look at the zoning tables. I've got them here if anybody wants to look at them, but I'll just read. Would be allowed. In mixed use, residential and commercial uses are combined. Under mixed use, the following commercial uses would be allowed: adult businesses, auto and truck major repairs, enclosed car wash, barber and beauty shops, bars and lounges, bed and breakfast, daycare, restaurants, sales and storage of construction materials, and self-service laundries, to name a few. This request is clearly inconsistent with the current zoning. Staff is recommending denial. Would you allow every residential property owner in Ascension Parish located on a major roadway to rezone his or her property from residential to mixed use in order to place advertising signs near the road? That would be absurd. This is clearly spot zoning. From the information given in your packet, it is clearly inappropriate to change this residential lot to mixed use. I would ask that you deny this request and concur with the staff on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Galpelt.
John Boswell, he's not in support, and he would like to speak.
Mr. Boswell?
Good evening. My name is John Boswell, and my home has been on Perkins Oak Road for the last 26 years. I feel ads placed on a fence at close to eye level in the intersection of Old Perkins Road and Walmart would create even more of a distraction to drivers and pedestrians. I have personally heard, seen, and been witness to numerous auto accidents in the aforementioned intersection. The signs would also take away from the aesthetics of Perkins Oak Road subdivision entrance. I have been informed that changing the area in question from medium residential to mixed-use commercial would allow a laundry list of commercial land uses to the area. Please do not approve this rezoning request. Thank you.
Thank you,
for your
sir.
time.
I have Ramona Boswell. I think she wants to speak, but she's not in support.
Ms. Boswell, you want to speak?
Yes.
Okay. More than welcome.
My name is Ramona Boswell. I live on Perkins Oak Road. Fence signs are visual clutter. Fence signs distract drivers. When you are looking at the signs, you are not looking at the road. Occasionally, I see residents from our street walk to Walmart, the mobile station convenience store, and the Half Shell restaurant. I'm concerned that a pedestrian may be hurt or even killed by a distracted driver looking at the fence signs. Please keep Perkins Oak Road all medium residential, no mixed-use commercial. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Aaron Pierre, he's not in support, and he wants to speak.
Good evening, council. My name is Aaron Pierre, and like the previous subdivision tenants, well, not subdivision tenants, but my neighbors, the Boswell, I have personally heard some of the accidents that have occurred right there at this intersection. I am in, I'm in disagreement with the rezoning due to we already have a lot of trash that overflows from Walmart onto our road. With the signs, it's gonna be more cardboard, more metal pins to get in our tires and what have you. Like it's already been said, it's already a high-traffic area. With the signs, the colors, everything else is gonna be less attention on the road and more attention on the signs. I'm in denial of this new zoning request. That's all I have for you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I have Christine Mascarella. She's not in support and does not wish to speak.
Okay.
I have Gregory Mascarella. He's not in support but would like to speak.
Thank you for letting me speak today. I agree with everybody in the subdivision. I've been there since 2005. I bought my home right after I got back from overseas. I have my grandkids and everything there that come there and visit me. It's a small subdivision with a small entrance. Me and my wife have almost been, and numerous occasions, almost were killed when a large mobile home almost ran into us. And it's, the light there is already bad. We don't need any more distractions. Now, on the side of that, everybody's made good arguments. I also work in the printing industry. I make these signs and stuff to put out, baseball fields, political signs. I know this stuff. I research it all my life, all my life. That's my living. And most of this stuff is, you got 5 or 6 years, the degradation. It depends on what you're going to be putting up there. It's something that I wouldn't want in my subdivision. I'm sure y'all wouldn't want it right at your subdivision. I understand, it's hard times. Everybody's got to make a dime, and I get that. I understand that, and I don't begrudge anybody for wanting that. The problem is we all kind of have to, when you get a community and you get in a subdivision, it's not just your land. You keep your grass mowed, you paint your house, and you do things for your neighbors, and this is one of those things. We got people that come in and out of that subdivision every day. I don't know what's going to be up there. Most of it's probably going to be pretty good advertising. That's a good thing about Ascension Parish. We've gotten rid of most of the businesses that caused us problems. But that being said, thank y'all for letting me speak, and just good with the don't deny it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mascarello.
I have Sharon Sanders. She's not in support and would like to speak.
Good evening, Commissioners. I live in Perkins Oak subdivision, and I'm opposed to the rezoning or the spot zoning. Mr. Whittington wants to establish advertising company and put up these large signs, and we just don't need any more clutter at the entrance of our subdivision. It is a nice neighborhood. However, speaking of commercial businesses, White Oak Drive currently has to contend with a smelly, ugly, unsanitary health hazard of a restaurant dumpster, which is located at the entrance on White Oak Drive. This is a real eyesore. Residents have repeatedly asked the owner and the manager to clean up the dumpster, fix the fence, and cut the grass on the White Oak side, and nothing's been done. It's an abuse of the residents. It's disrespectful to the neighborhood. And I will not patronize any business that abuses my neighborhood and has a negative impact on property values. So we don't need any more commercial stuff. And by the way, there is a neighborhood ordinance that says you're not supposed to have a business in the neighborhood that brings in more traffic or additional traffic. So at the dumpster, it's unsightly, and I believe it does have a negative impact on property values, but it's a cumulative type thing. So with signs and with other commercial stuff, it does have a cumulative negative impact. So it's an intrusion into our neighborhood, and once these establishments are there, they can become arrogant, abusive, and disrespectful, and it's hard to get them to straighten up, in my experience. There's plenty of space on Airline Highway for more signs and more businesses. So that's it, that I'm finished. However, I would like to thank Doc for his excellent representation of District 4 and his concern for neighborhoods, small businesses, and animals. I couldn't ask for a better councilman. Thank you.
I have Teresa Robert. She does not wish to speak. She's not in support. Then I have Doc Souterling. He's not in support and would like to speak.
Good evening, gentlemen. Again, I'd like to begin by thanking Ms. Sanders for the commercial. But actually, what I'd like to do is talk about all of these people that spoke, because these are my neighbors and my friends. You heard tonight from Ms. Sanders, you heard from the Moscarellas, you heard from the Boswells, Mr. Pierre, probably leaving some out, and others. What did you hear? You heard spot zoning, you heard decreasing their property value, you heard the term eyesore. What you didn't hear, applicant would have a benefit, would increase his property value, but without any valid, gentlemen, codal reasons. You also heard about increased risk of accidents. I concur with that for sure. That's a very busy intersection. I've seen lots of accidents there. Don't need your eyes off the road, reading signs and making the problem worse. If you were to approve this tonight, gentlemen, in fact, it sets a very dangerous precedent. And I'm going to get in that in a minute in my summarial remark, because it involves me personally. Okay? Your staff, another reason, recommended denial. I would maintain and submit to you humbly, we have zoning laws for a reason. Tonight, we see in one of those reasons. A unified land development code, okay? This has been mentioned, has a laundry list, I believe was the term used, of other uses. There's no guarantee it'll just be signs. And although the gentleman may actually be a man of his word and only put signs, but then he moves. People move on average every, 7 years, it says in America? And the next guy comes in there, and I did hear, I think, from Ms. Gupple, I failed to mention her excellent talk. Adult businesses? Guys, this is a no-brainer. Now, why is it personally really upsetting to me, and why am I here tonight? I'm a busy man, very busy, like each and every one of you. I come tonight because I'm on Perkins Road, 3/10 of a mile probably west of the captioned property. I have a fence too. It's very similar in construction. 6 foot tall, privacy made out of wood. If y'all approve this, I'll pay the fee and I'm coming back next week and ask you to rezone mine. Because I could put enough signs on 700 feet of fence, have a 2.5 acre lot, compared to whatever the gentleman has here, 50 or 70, to pay my monthly mortgage note. And then, of course, when I leave, my property will be worth 4 or 5 times its probably existing value right now if I went from RM to mixed use. I'm going to stop right there. I'd ask you to think about it. I didn't count them down, but I probably listed at least a dozen. And if I were hard-pressed and had the time more than 3 minutes and the forbearance of this commission, I'll bet you I could come up with a dozen more. Again, gentlemen, this is a no-brainer. You need to deny this before it comes up as a recommendation to the council, where you can bet your sweet bippy, I, for one, will be voting with a resounding no. And thank you for listening.
Anyone
That's
else?
That's it.
All right, we'll close the public hearing. Mr. Whittington, I'll give you last shot if you want to say anything else before we take this up and consider.
Yes, sir, I can. Mostly I can say I'm pretty disappointed as this is already going on. If anyone's been to the intersection of 621 and 431, this is already happening, where somebody has an advertising company at a busy intersection.
That gentleman actually, his property is actually zoned commercial.
Okay, well, I mean, it's happening, and, I mean, if there's no wrecks going on right there, you're not gonna have wrecks by me. Traffic from about 4 o'clock to 6:30 PM is at a standstill right there. Can't even hardly get through. You got the red light right there at Walmart, people are sitting there. I mean, it's slow traffic for the most part. This isn't people flying down there. You got a red light, I mean, you're sitting. People are still. I mean, this comes down to really an issue of people just not wanting signs on my fence is really what it is. But I'm at the front of the street. I don't have the niceness of living inside the neighborhood. I'm up at the front. It's a whole different world up there. It's like a city. It's a city where I'm at. I have, this lady talked about dumpsters down at White Oak subdivision from the restaurants. and all that. I have that right in my backyard. That's going on right there at the half shell in my backyard. I got people hanging out right behind my house. All right, so I'm in the middle of the city. Everybody else that's in my neighborhood is in the neighborhood. I'm not. It's a whole different world for me. You know, my house is right in the middle of the city. I really don't understand any other reason for it besides people just not wanting signs on my fence. And that's pretty much it.
Well, Mr. Whittington, I would just say that, I'll say a couple things in response to that. First off, I don't begrudge anybody making a living or monetizing their property. I think the problem that we face with this is if we recommend approval, and if we do recommend approval tonight, which I'm not probably going to vote for that, you can't do it. You still have to go to the parish council, and you just heard from your parish councilman that he's not going to vote for it. So, it's limited. But if we do that, and then for some reason, whatever it is that you can't anticipate in a year, 2 years, 10 years, you sell your property to somebody, they could come in and put a strip club in that subdivision or something else, or a liquor store, whatever can fit into that use. And that's really the problem that I see with it. You are part of that subdivision. I think the map I saw, your driveway goes in and out of White Oak Road. So that's the issue that I have with it. I think Mr. Mascarello said it best. I'm certainly want you to make as much money as you can, but if I lived there and we heard from your neighbors, I probably would not be in favor of it at all. So, not because I don't want you to make money, but because it changes the whole character of the subdivision and it changes the character of that lot. So, that's the real reason for it, but I'll let the other commissioners speak, or we'll move on this either way.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with you, Mr. Chairman. As a former small business owner, have no problem with someone trying to make a living and increase their business. I sure did all my time in business. But this is a great little subdivision. I've been in Perkins Oak many times when I was in business. We were in the waste hauling business and drove up and down there many times. Neat, clean little neighborhood. I don't think these people want a mixed use, which is a commercial zoning, right at the beginning of their lot, of their subdivision. When they bought in there, that was residential. You didn't have the restaurant and the filling station there when that street was built. And that's, public safety is an issue too, but my main contention is, zoning a residential lot into a mixed use, I think is unfair to your subdivision neighbors, and that's why I'm gonna vote no.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same problem. You're in the subdivision, and so I personally have no problem with you putting signs up on your fence, but the laundry list of anything that falls in MU2, you sell your house and somebody comes on and, it's probably, I don't know how big of a house you have. I assume it's too small for a strip club, but I'm sure you could fit an adult video store or something like that. It would be, that they wouldn't need to get anything from the parish to do that because the land would already be zoned for it. And the driveway would be in the subdivision. The people who live in the subdivision would drive literally past the entrance to that store or that business to get to their house. And that's why we have the zoning laws. It's not in keeping at all with what, any good planning principles to rezone a piece of property that is in a residential neighborhood, even though it's at the corner of at the entrance of the residential neighborhood, it's still in the residential neighborhood, the driveway's in the residential neighborhood, and the laundry list of options or types of businesses that your house could become once you got rid of that property is the reason why we don't allow MU designations to be rezoned into residential neighborhoods, and that's one of the big issues with it.
Mr. Whittington, this is just not consistent with our master plan. This is not consistent with our development code. And what you're trying to do, you want to try to be within the code. You're trying to fall in, but it's a code violation. And you're trying to do what would be the right way, but this is not the place for it. I'm sorry, but, and I know what you're talking about. Look, I have a big complaint about the one at 431 and 621 myself, but he zoned it that way. He zoned it a long time ago, and now we're reaping the very big eyesore of what that property is. We don't like it. This is not what we want in Ascension Parish. And I'm sure if we could do something about that one, we would too. Unfortunately, this is just not consistent with what we want and where our goals and where our values lie here in Ascension and for our master plan and everything else. That all being said, I'm going to recommend denial to the parish council and I make a motion on that basis.
All right, we got a motion to deny by Mr. Schexnayder, second by Mr. Chasson. All in favor of denial?
Aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none. Sorry, Mr. Whittington, but like you said, you can, it doesn't matter. Whatever we recommend, the parish council still has to take it up. And I think you heard tonight that at least your councilman's mind's already made up on this. So, motion to adjourn?
Motion.
By Mr. Chasson. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all for coming. Have a good night. See you next month.